My wife once said, "Don't come to my office party. It'll be awkward with my ex there." I said, "No, of course I'll stay home." What she didn't know was that I was the new regional director her boss invited as a surprise guest. Let me back up. My name is Jack Sullivan, and until 3 months ago, I was just another construction foreman grinding through 12-hour days while my wife Clara climbed the corporate ladder at Brennan and Associates, one of the city's most prestigious law firms. Clara always made it clear that my blue-collar background embarrassed her at work functions. "It's just different worlds, Jack," she'd say, adjusting her designer blazer. "You wouldn't enjoy it anyway." The drift started 2 years ago. Late nights became the norm. "Big case coming up," she'd explain, barely looking up from her phone. Weekend work trips multiplied. Her explanations grew shorter, her kisses more perfunctory. I told myself it was career pressure, that successful marriages required sacrifice. Then I found the credit card statement. Hidden in her car's glove compartment, folded beneath insurance papers, was a Visa bill I'd never seen. Hotel charges, expensive dinners, wine that cost more than my weekly grocery budget, all on dates when she claimed to be working late or traveling for depositions. The final piece fell into place when I discovered a selfie on her tablet. Clara and Chad Morrison, her ex-boyfriend from law school, clinking champagne glasses at the Meridian Hotel bar. The timestamp showed last Tuesday. The same Tuesday she'd texted me about pulling an all-nighter at the office. Chad Morrison. I remembered him from Clara's stories. The golden boy who dumped her senior year for someone with better connections. Now he was back as a senior associate at her firm, and apparently back in her bed. Instead of confronting her immediately, I made a different choice. That Friday, Clara's boss, Mr. Gleason, called me directly. "Jack, I've been watching your project management skills on the courthouse renovation. I'm impressed. How would you like to discuss a position as regional director for our facilities and operations?" The irony was delicious. Clara had spent years trying to keep me away from her professional world, and now her boss was personally recruiting me. Better yet, the position would make me Clara's superior in the company hierarchy. I accepted immediately. "There is one condition," Gleason added. "I want to surprise the staff at our monthly mixer this Friday. Don't tell anyone, especially Clara. I want to see their genuine reactions when I announce your appointment." Friday evening arrived with October's crisp bite in the air. I dressed carefully, my best suit, the one Clara had bought me for her cousin's wedding, but insisted I never wear to work things. As I walked through the gleaming lobby of Brennan and Associates, past the marble floors and abstract art that screamed expensive taste, I felt like a wolf entering the henhouse. The party was in full swing on the 20th floor. Lawyers in $1,000 suits clustered around high-top tables, nursing wine, and exchanging the kind of sophisticated small talk that Clara claimed I couldn't navigate. I spotted her immediately, stunning in a red dress I'd never seen, laughing at something Chad was whispering in her ear. Chad looked exactly as I'd imagined. Tall, perfectly styled hair, the kind of confident smirk that came from never facing real consequences. His hand rested possessively on Clara's lower back as they shared some private joke. I made my way to the bar, where a young woman with short blonde hair was nursing a martini and looking decidedly uncomfortable. She kept glancing toward Clara and Chad with an expression I recognized, the look of someone who'd recently discovered an unpleasant truth. "You must be Sophie," I said, extending my hand. "Jack Sullivan. I've heard a lot about you." She looked surprised. "Have we met?" "Not formally, but I know you're dating Chad Morrison. I'm Clara's husband." Sophie's expression shifted to something between sympathy and embarrassment. "Oh, I... this is awkward." "Only if you make it awkward," I said, signaling the bartender for a whiskey. "Actually, I was hoping we could chat. I think we might have some common interests." Before she could respond, the room's attention shifted to the front, where Mr. Gleason was tapping his wine glass with a fork. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention," Gleason announced, his voice carrying easily across the room. "I have an exciting announcement to make tonight." I watched Clara straighten, probably expecting news about a promotion or major case victory. Chad's arm tightened around her waist, his smug expression suggesting that he thought this might be about him. "As you know, we've been expanding our operations and looking for someone to oversee our facilities, security, and regional coordination. I'm pleased to announce that we've found the perfect candidate, someone with exceptional project management skills and an impressive track record of getting things done under pressure. Clara was smiling now, probably calculating how this new hire might affect her own advancement. Chad whispered something in her ear that made her laugh. Please join me in welcoming our new Regional Director of Operations, Jack Sullivan. The applause started before the name fully registered. I watched Clara's face transform from polite interest to confusion to absolute horror as she realized what was happening. The wineglass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor as I stood up and walked toward the front of the room. Chad's mouth fell open. His arm dropped from Clara's waist like she'd suddenly caught fire. The confident smirk evaporated, replaced by the kind of panic that comes from realizing you've been caught red-handed. Thank you, Mr. Gleason, I said, accepting the microphone with a smile that felt sharp as a blade. I'm excited to be joining such a distinguished team. I look forward to working closely with all of you, especially those in the family law department. My eyes found Clara's across the room. She looked like she might be sick. I believe in hands-on management and close attention to detail, I continued. I'll be reviewing all departmental operations, expense reports, and personnel files to ensure we're maintaining the highest standards of professional conduct. The applause was more scattered this time, with several people shooting confused glances between Clara and me. Office gossip traveled fast, and everyone knew Clara Sullivan was married. They just hadn't expected her husband to be their new boss. As I handed the microphone back to Gleason, I caught Sophie's eye. She was staring at Chad with a mixture of disgust and fury that suggested she'd finally put the pieces together. Excuse me, Sophie said loudly, standing up from her bar stool. Chad, darling, could you come here for a moment? Chad looked like a deer in headlights, but he couldn't ignore her without causing a scene. As he reluctantly approached, Sophie picked up the small plate of hot spinach and artichoke canapes from the bar. I have a question about professional ethics, Sophie announced, her voice carrying across the now quiet room. What's the policy on senior associates who sleep with married colleagues? Before Chad could respond, she hurled the plate of hot appetizers directly at his chest. The ceramic shattered against his expensive shirt, leaving him covered in steaming spinach and looking absolutely ridiculous. The room erupted in chaos. Someone screamed. Chad stumbled backward, bumping into a server carrying a 3-tier cake, which promptly toppled over. Clara, rushing forward to help Chad, slipped on the spilled wine from her broken glass and went down hard, her red dress riding up embarrassingly. I stood in the middle of it all, perfectly calm, watching my wife scramble on the floor while her lover picked spinach out of his hair. Well, I said to no one in particular, this is going better than I expected. As security guards rushed to restore order and servers scrambled to clean up the mess, I walked over to where Clara was struggling to stand. Her face was flushed with humiliation and rage. Hello, sweetheart, I said pleasantly. Surprise. The morning after the office party, our house felt like a crime scene. Clara had driven home separately, arriving after midnight with her dress torn and her dignity in tatters. I'd been waiting in the kitchen, sipping coffee and reading the sports section like it was any other Saturday morning. She'd stormed past me without a word, her heels clicking angrily on the hardwood floors. The bedroom door slammed hard enough to rattle the picture frames in the hallway. I'd given her the night to stew in her embarrassment, but now it was time for the real conversation. I found her in our home office, frantically typing on her laptop. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her usually perfect hair hung limp around her shoulders. She looked up when I entered, and the venom in her stare could have melted steel. You son of an unpleasant person, she hissed. How could you do that to me? Do what exactly? I asked, settling into the leather chair across from her desk. Accept a job offer? Attend a company party? I'm not sure which part upset you. Don't play dumb, Jack. You humiliated me in front of my entire office. My career is ruined. I laughed, and the sound seemed to surprise both of us. Your career is ruined? Clara, you're screwing your ex-boyfriend and lying to your husband about it. I'd say your career problems are self-inflicted. She went very still. I don't know what you're talking about. The Meridian Hotel, September 15th, 23rd, and 30th. October 7th and 14th. I pulled out a folder I'd prepared and set it on her desk. Credit card statements, hotel receipts, restaurant bills, should I continue? Claire's face went white as she opened the folder. Her hands shook slightly as she flipped through the evidence I'd compiled over the past month. Photos from the hotel's security cameras showing her and Chad entering together, receipts for champagne and room service, even a few screenshots from Chad's social media where he'd posted photos of expensive dinners with mysterious captions like, "Celebrating with someone special." "How did you get these?" she whispered. "Turns out my new position comes with some interesting access privileges. Security footage, expense account records, personnel files. Amazing what you can discover when you know where to look." She slammed the folder shut. "You're sick. Following me around, spying on me like some kind of stalker." "I didn't follow you anywhere, Clara. You left a paper trail a mile wide, hotel charges on a credit card you thought I didn't know about, photos on your tablet, text messages you forgot to delete." I leaned forward. "Did you really think I was too stupid to figure it out? It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You're having an affair with Chad Morrison, and you have been for months. The only question is whether you're going to keep lying about it or if we're going to deal with this like adults." Clara stood up abruptly, pacing to the window that overlooked our backyard. We'd planted that garden together 3 years ago, back when we still talked about having kids and growing old together. Now it felt like evidence of a different lifetime. "Fine," she said without turning around. "Yes, I've been seeing Chad, but it's not some sordid affair, Jack. We have history. We understand each other." "You understand each other," I repeated. "Is that what you call it when you use our joint savings to pay for hotel rooms?" "I never touched our joint account." "No, but you opened a credit card in your name and listed our house as collateral, which means if you default, we both lose everything." I stood up and joined her at the window. "Did you think I wouldn't find out about that either?" She turned to face me, and for a moment, I saw a flash of the woman I'd married, vulnerable, uncertain, almost young. Then her lawyer instincts kicked in, and her expression hardened. "What do you want, Jack? Money? The house? Just name your price and let's get this over with." "I don't want your money, Clara. I want you to understand what you've cost us, both of us." Before she could respond, the doorbell rang. Through the front window, I could see Chad's silver BMW in our driveway. He was standing on our porch in jeans and a polo shirt, looking significantly less confident than he had at the office party. "Did you call him?" I asked. Clara shook her head, but she was already moving toward the front door. I followed, curious to see how this would play out. Chad looked nervous when Clara opened the door. His eyes darted between her and me, clearly trying to assess the situation. "Hey," he said awkwardly. "I wanted to check on you after last night, make sure you were okay." "She's fine," I said before Clara could answer. "Thanks for stopping by." Chad's jaw tightened. "I wasn't talking to you." "No, but you're standing on my property, so I'm talking to you." I stepped closer to the door, close enough that Chad had to look up slightly to meet my eyes. "Is there something you need?" "Jack, don't," Clara warned, but I could hear uncertainty in her voice. Chad tried to look around me to Clara. "We need to talk about what happened, about what this means for us." "What this means," I said, "is that your girlfriend threw food at you in front of 50 lawyers, and now everyone at Brennan and Associates knows you're sleeping with a married woman. I'd say that's going to make Monday morning pretty interesting." "You think you're so smart," Chad said, his composure finally cracking. "You have no idea what you've walked into. Claire and I have been planning—" "Chad, shut up," Clara snapped. But it was too late. The words hung in the air between us like a confession. "Planning what?" I asked quietly. Chad glanced at Clara, realized his mistake, and tried to backtrack. "Nothing. We haven't been planning anything." "No, please, continue. You were saying you and my wife have been planning something. I'm very interested to hear what that might be." The silence stretched uncomfortably. Chad looked like he wanted to disappear, and Clara was staring at him with the kind of fury usually reserved for opposing counsel who'd just blown their case. "Get off my property," I said finally. "And Chad, if I see you here again, we're going to have a very different kind of conversation." Chad started to say something, thought better of it, and walked back to his car. As he drove away, I turned to Clara. "Planning what?" I asked him again. She crossed her arms defensively. "It's nothing that concerns you anymore. Everything about this situation concerns me, Clara. We're still married. This is still our house, and I'm still your boss." That last part hit home. Claire's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "This is insane," she said. "You can't be my boss. There have to be rules about conflicts of interest." "Already checked. As long as I recuse myself from any decisions directly affecting your employment status, there's no policy violation. Of course, that doesn't apply to expense account reviews or general oversight responsibilities. Claire stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You're enjoying this. You know what? I am. For 2 years, you've made me feel like I wasn't good enough for your world. Too rough around the edges, too blue collar, too embarrassing to introduce to your sophisticated friends. Now I'm part of that world, and it turns out I fit just fine. You don't fit anywhere, Clara spat. You're a construction worker playing dress up, and everyone can see it. Maybe, but I'm a construction worker with access to security footage, expense reports, and personnel files. I'm also a construction worker who knows how to read credit card statements and track down hotel receipts. Most importantly, I'm a construction worker who's about to make your life very, very complicated. Clara's phone buzzed with a text message. She glanced at it and her face went pale. What is it? I asked. She showed me the screen. The message was from Sophie. We need to talk Monday morning, my office. Looks like your boyfriend's girlfriend wants a word, I observed. This should be interesting. Claire sank onto the couch, suddenly looking exhausted. What do you want from me, Jack? What's it going to take to end this? I sat down across from her, studying the woman I'd thought I knew. I want the truth, all of it. How long has this been going on? What were you and Chad planning? And I want to know why you thought I was too stupid to figure it out. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she finally looked up, there was something different in her expression, not quite defeat, but close. It started 6 months ago, she said quietly. Chad joined the firm and we started working late together. It was just talking at first, catching up on old times. Then one night we had too much wine and you decided to blow up our marriage. It wasn't supposed to happen, but being with Chad reminded me of who I used to be. Before I got married, before I had to worry about whether my husband would embarrass me at work functions. So this is my fault? No, yes, I don't know. She rubbed her temples. Everything got so complicated. Chad started talking about us getting back together, about me leaving you. He said he could help me get promoted to a partner if we played it right. Played it right how? Claire hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Chad has connections with some of the senior partners. He said if I divorced you and we got engaged, it would show I was serious about my career, committed to the firm's social expectations. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. You were going to divorce me to get a promotion? It wasn't just about the promotion. Chad and I have a real connection. We understand each other's ambitions. And what about our connection? 7 years of marriage, the house we built together, the life we planned. You never understood my ambitions, Jack. You were content with your construction job and weekend barbecues. I wanted more. I stood up, needing distance from her. You wanted more, so you decided to cheat and lie instead of just asking for a divorce? I was trying to find a way to do this without hurting you. Without hurting me? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Clara, you took out a credit card, using our house as collateral to pay for hotel rooms with your ex-boyfriend. You lied to me for months. You made me feel like I was going crazy when I asked about your late nights and weekend trips. How exactly were you trying not to hurt me? She didn't have an answer for that. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to call a lawyer, not Chad, not anyone from your firm, and file for divorce. We're going to split everything 50-50, including the debt you racked up on your secret credit card. And you're going to do it quietly, without dragging this through the office. And if I don't, I smiled, and Clara actually flinched. Then Monday morning is going to be very interesting for both of us. Monday morning arrived with the kind of gray October drizzle that made everything look dirty and depressing. I'd spent Sunday preparing for what I knew would be a challenging first day as regional director. More importantly, I'd spent it planning my next moves in what was shaping up to be a very personal chess game. I arrived at Brennan and Associates early, wanting to establish myself in my new office before the regular staff arrived. The 20th floor was quiet, with only the hum of computers and the distant sound of the cleaning crew finishing their rounds. My office was impressive. Corner location with floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking the city, mahogany desk that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, and a conference table that could seat 8. It was the kind of space that commanded respect, and I intended to use every square inch of that advantage. At 7:30, I heard the elevator ding and voices in the hallway. The workday was beginning, and I was curious to see how people would react to Friday night's drama. Sophie appeared in my doorway at exactly 8 o'clock, looking professional in a navy suit, but with fire in her eyes. Mr. Sullivan, she said formally, Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Please call me Jack, and thank you for the show Friday night. I haven't seen dinner theater that entertaining since my college days. She smiled grimly. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I certainly did. I gestured for her to sit down. What can I do for you, Sophie? I wanted to know what you're planning to do about Chad and Clara. That's a very direct question. I'm a very direct person. Chad has been lying to me for months. And apparently your wife has been lying to you. I think that gives us some common ground. I studied her carefully. Sophie Chen was sharper than I'd initially realized. 28 years old, Harvard Law graduate, 3 years at Brennan and Associates, with an impressive track record in corporate litigation. She was also, according to the personnel files I'd reviewed, being considered for promotion to senior associate. What exactly do you think I'm planning? I asked. I think you're going to make their lives miserable, and I think I can help. Why would you want to help me? Sophie's expression hardened. Because Chad Morrison is a lying, cheating coward who's been using me as cover for his affair with your wife. Because he's been taking credit for work I've done and promising me promotions he has no authority to deliver. And because I'm tired of watching mediocre men get ahead by stepping on everyone around them. Those are good reasons. I have more. Chad's been embezzling from client expense accounts. Small amounts, nothing that would trigger an audit, but enough to pay for his extracurricular activities. He's also been sharing confidential case information with Clara, even though she works in a different department. Now she had my attention. Can you prove that? Sophie opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Copies of expense reports, email communications, and bank records. I've been documenting everything for weeks, waiting for the right moment to use it. I flipped through the documents, impressed by her thoroughness. This is solid work. Why haven't you reported this already? Because I wanted to destroy him completely, not just get him fired. A simple ethics violation would mean a reprimand and maybe a suspension. But if this comes out as part of a larger pattern of misconduct, it becomes a career-ending scandal that follows him everywhere. Exactly. I leaned back in my chair, reassessing Sophie. She wasn't just angry, she was strategic. What do you want from me? Access to security footage, expense account records, and personnel files. Things I can't get on my own, but that you can request as regional director. And in return, I help you expose Chad and Clara's affair in a way that maximizes the professional consequences for both of them. Clara loses her shot at partnership, Chad gets fired in disgrace, and you get your revenge. It was a tempting offer, but I needed to be careful. What about your relationship with Chad? Won't this reflect poorly on you? Sophie laughed bitterly. What relationship? After Friday night, everyone knows he's been cheating on me. If anything, helping expose his corruption makes me look like a sufferer who fought back, not an accomplice. Before I could respond, there was a knock on my door. Clara stood in the hallway, looking nervous and professional in a charcoal gray suit. Her makeup couldn't quite hide the dark circles under her eyes. Jack, could I speak with you privately? I glanced at Sophie, who gathered her documents and stood up. We'll continue this conversation later, she said meaningfully. After Sophie left, Clara closed the door and sat down across from my desk. The formal setting made everything feel strange, like a business meeting between strangers rather than a conversation between husband and wife. This is weird, Clara said, echoing my thoughts. It's about to get weirder. What do you need? I want to know what you're planning to do, about us, about work, about everything. I told you yesterday. File for divorce, split everything 50-50, and try to keep this mess from destroying both our careers. And you'll leave me alone at work? No harassment, no retaliation? I smiled. Clara, I'm not going to bother you. I'm going to do my job, which includes oversight of all departmental operations and personnel conduct. If that makes you uncomfortable, you're welcome to find employment elsewhere. You can't force me to quit. I'm not forcing you to do anything. I'm simply pointing out that working for your soon-to-be ex-husband might be awkward for both of us. Clara shifted uncomfortably in her chair. What about Chad? What about him? Are you going to go after him too? That depends entirely on Chad. If he keeps his head down, does his job, and stays away from my personal life, we won't have any problems. But if he continues to be a disruptive influence, I let the threat hang unfinished. Clara got the message. This is insane, she said. You can't run people's personal lives. I'm not running anyone's personal life. I'm managing workplace conduct and professional relationships. It's literally my job description. A knock on the door interrupted us. Mr. Gleason entered without waiting for permission, looking pleased with himself. Jack, excellent. I'm glad you're settling in. Clara, perfect timing. I wanted to discuss the Morrison situation with both of you. Clara and I exchanged glances. The Morrison situation? I asked. Friday night's incident has created some complications. Several clients were present, and word is spreading about the altercation. We need to address this before it affects our reputation. What kind of complications? Clara asked, though she looked like she already knew. The Hartwell Group is reconsidering their contract renewal. Apparently, Mrs. Hartwell was quite shocked by the spectacle. She's questioning whether we maintain appropriate professional standards. I felt a surge of satisfaction. The Hartwell Group was Clara's biggest client, worth over $2 million in annual fees. Losing them would be a significant blow to her partnership prospects. I see, Claire said quietly. I'm reassigning the Hartwell account to the corporate team, Gleason continued, and I'm suspending Chad pending a full review of Friday's incident. Clara, you'll be working with Sophie Chen to ensure a smooth transition. Clara's face went white. Mr. Gleason, I don't think that's necessary. It was just a misunderstanding that cost us a major client and created a public relations nightmare. I'm not taking any chances. After Gleason left, Clara stared at me across the desk. You planned this. I didn't plan anything. I just accepted a job offer and attended a company party. Everything else was your choice. Sophie throwing food at Chad wasn't my choice. No, but sleeping with Chad was. Using our house as collateral for hotel rooms was. Lying to me for months was. You made your choices, Clara. Now you get to live with the consequences. She stood up abruptly. This isn't over. Yes, it is. You just don't realize it yet. After Clara left, I sat alone in my office, looking out at the gray city beyond my windows. The morning had gone better than I'd hoped. Chad was suspended, Clara had lost her biggest client, and I had a new ally in Sophie. But I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. I picked up my phone and dialed a familiar number. Frank's gym, came the gruff voice on the other end. Frank, it's Jack. You busy tonight? For you? Never. What do you need? I need to hit something. Hard. Frank laughed. Rough day at the office, boss? You could say that. But it's about to get a lot rougher for some other people. I'll have the heavy bag ready. As I hung up the phone, I realized I was smiling. For the first time in months, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. The Meridian Hotel bar was exactly as I'd imagined from the photos. All dark wood and leather with the kind of understated elegance that screamed expensive. I'd been watching Chad and Clara's usual table for 20 minutes, nursing a whiskey and pretending to read financial reports on my tablet. They arrived separately, as always. Clara first, looking around nervously before taking a seat in the corner booth. Chad 5 minutes later, sliding in beside her with the casual confidence of someone who thought he was untouchable. I'd positioned myself at the bar, where I could see them clearly but remain unnoticed. The beauty of being the blue-collar husband was that people like Chad and Clara never really looked at people like me. We were invisible, part of the background. This is getting too complicated, Clara was saying, her voice just loud enough for me to hear over the ambient jazz music. Jack knows everything. He showed me hotel receipts, credit card statements, even security photos. Chad sipped his martini, looking unconcerned. So what? He can't prove anything that would hold up in court. It's all circumstantial. He doesn't need court-quality proof, Chad. He's my boss now. He can make my life hell without breaking any laws. Not if we move fast enough. I leaned closer, pretending to study my tablet while straining to hear their conversation. What do you mean? Claire asked. I mean, we stick to the original plan. You file for divorce, claim irreconcilable differences, and we present a united front. Once you're free, we can get engaged and show the partners that you're committed to the firm's social expectations. And what about the suspension? Gleason made it clear that Friday night was a disaster. Chad's jaw tightened. That's a temporary setback. I have dirt on half the senior partners. They won't keep me suspended for long. What kind of dirt? The kind that ends careers and ruins marriages. Trust me, Clara. By Christmas, this will all be behind us. You'll be on track for partnership, and Jack will be back to building things with his hands. I'd heard enough. I paid my tab and walked casually toward their table, timing my approach for maximum impact. "Evening, folks," I said pleasantly, sliding into the booth across from them. "Don't mind me, I was just in the neighborhood." Clara nearly choked on her wine. Chad's face went through several shades of red before settling on furious. "What the hell are you doing here?" Chad demanded. "Having a drink. It's a public place, Chad. I'm allowed to be here." "You followed us." "Actually, I was here first. You followed me." I signaled the waitress. "Whiskey neat, please. Top shelf. Put it on their tab." Clara found her voice. "Jack, this is harassment. This is a coincidence. I was meeting a client for drinks, and imagine my surprise when I saw my wife and her suspended colleague having what looked like a very intense conversation." "We're discussing the case transition," Clara said stiffly. Yes, the Hartwell account." "How's that going, by the way? I heard Mrs. Hartwell was quite upset about Friday's dinner theater." Chad leaned forward aggressively. "You think you're so smart, don't you? Coming in here, playing your little games. You have no idea who you're messing with. Enlighten me. I know things about this firm that could bring down senior partners. I have documentation, recordings, photographs. If you think you can destroy my career without consequences, you're stupider than you look." I sipped my whiskey, considering his words. "That sounds like blackmail, Chad. Are you blackmailing your colleagues?" "I'm protecting my interests. By threatening to expose other people's secrets unless they protect you from the consequences of your own misconduct?" Chad's face was getting redder. "I'm not the only one with secrets in this firm." "No, but you might be the only one stupid enough to admit to blackmail in front of witnesses." I gestured around the bar, where several other patrons were now openly staring at our table. Chad's voice had been rising steadily, and his threats were carrying farther than he realized. Clara grabbed his arm. "Chad, shut up. You're making this worse." But Chad was beyond listening. "You want to play games, Jack? Let's play games. I know about the Henderson case. I know about Gleason's gambling debts. I know about the missing client funds and the doctored timesheets. You think anyone's going to protect you when I start talking?" The bar had gone quiet around us. Even the jazz music seemed muted. I looked around at the faces watching our table, several of whom I recognized as lawyers from other firms in the city. "Chad," I said quietly, "you might want to lower your voice." He looked around for the first time and realized what he'd done. His face went pale as he saw the other patrons staring at him with a mixture of shock and fascination. He started, then stopped. "You just confessed to blackmail and implicated your own firm in multiple felonies," I observed. "In front of about 20 witnesses, including at least 3 lawyers I recognize from other firms." Clara was staring at Chad like he'd lost his mind. "What have you done?" You were trying to threaten me, and instead you just destroyed your own career and possibly brought down your entire firm." I finished my whiskey and stood up. "Clara, you might want to start updating your resume. Chad, you might want to start looking for a good criminal defense attorney." As I walked toward the exit, I heard Clara hissing furiously at Chad, but I couldn't make out the words over the renewed buzz of conversation around the bar. By tomorrow morning, Chad's outburst would be the talk of the city's legal community. Outside the hotel, I pulled out my phone and dialed Sophie's number. "Jack, what's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's perfect." "Are you free for coffee tomorrow morning? I think you're going to want to hear about tonight's entertainment." "What happened?" "Chad Morrison just committed career self-harm in front of half the city's legal establishment, and I got it all on my phone's voice recorder." Sophie was quiet for a moment. "You recorded him?" "I recorded everything. His blackmail threats, his admission of having compromising information on senior partners, his claims about missing client funds, all of it. Jesus Christ, Jack. Do you realize what this means?" "It means Chad Morrison's problems just became everyone's problems. And Claire's about to find out that sleeping with the wrong person can destroy more than just a marriage." I could hear Sophie laughing on the other end of the line. "You magnificent coward. You didn't just set a trap. You got him to spring it himself. The best revenge is when your enemies destroy themselves. You just have to be patient enough to let them do it." As I drove home through the October night, I realized that everything was falling into place exactly as I'd hoped. Chad's career was finished, Claire's partnership prospects were dead, and I hadn't had to lift a finger to make it happen. But I wasn't done yet, not even close. The end.